morning and welcome to the Retirement Railroad 2.0. I'm Steve and this is episode 41 of Workbench Wednesday. And this is the beginning of the long-awaited Fairview Avenue grade crossing. All right, and the crossing arms, the animated crossing arms with lights and sound. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at it, shall we? All right, this is the original eBay listing from over a year ago. I think back June 24th or something like that. And you'll notice it is now out of stock. So you can't buy them right now anyway. And like a lot of things, this is from Wehonest out of China. And I believe these are stock overruns. These were made for some other company, and Wehonest bought the overstock and put it out there on the market. And I snatched one of these up, and $100 is a good price if you look at everything you get. And it's because if you buy the individual component parts, the costs go up drastically. So when it arrived, it arrived in one box, but two internal boxes. We had a box with a power supply and a bag and a bag in a bag with the grade crossings, the crossing guards themselves. And then this bag of circuit boards and wires and mounting hardware and servos and oh my, everything you need for this project except for instructions. There are absolutely no instructions. Now, I looked at this, and this is one of the reasons it's taken me so long to begin to tackle this project. But it wasn't until a few months ago I went back and I looked at that original listing again, and you notice down on the bottom there's all kinds of pictures. So let's scroll through those pictures and see what we got. Well, here's the contents of the bag. Alright, but it sure doesn't show how to hook them up. And here's one of the circuit boards and kind of what each plug is for. Alright, that helps a little bit, I guess. Alright, here's another circuit board, same kind of thing. And another. And yet another. Alright, luckily, there's also this one. And this one, if you can decipher through it enough, you can tell what is hooked where, at least for the most part. So that's the one we're gonna go by. I've printed out all of these instructions, and we are going to unpack everything onto the workbench and see what we can come up with. Okay, so I got everything out of the main bags. Still have them in their individual bags. So I start to actually hook things up. Alright, and interesting project. Kind of looks like the picture, doesn't it? So we shall see. see how this works out. Hang tight. All right, I did find where Wehonest is selling these again and has stock in the United States. I'll put a link in the description below. They have gone up in price from last year. They were $99 and change last year. They're now $114 and change. And they do specifically state in the eBay listing that there are no instructions and that a person should review these pictures and get a firm understanding of the installation and wiring process. Excuse me. And that's what I have been doing, and looking through everything. And one thing I noticed, all right, there are 4 infrared sensors. There are only 2 infrared connection points, here and here. All right, and you can see that on the instructions of this board here. I fully understand you can't read them, but you can on a regular picture of it. So there is some loss of definition in the video. So anyway, so what happens is they have these connectors, and this is basically a splitter. All right, plugs here, and another one plugs here. That, instead of 2, now you're up to 4. And they do say that you can add more by splitting it again. So since I have a 3-line main line, or 3 tracks, instead of 2, which is what this is set up for, I went back to Wehonest and to their eBay store, and lo and behold, they do sell more sensors and splitters. So I have gone ahead and ordered 2 more splitters, which comes with 4 more IR sensors. I only need 2 more, but it comes with 4. So those will be here in 3 to 5 days. In the interim, we're going to go ahead and continue with the project. So I'm past one hurdle. So stay tuned as I continue to study this. Okay, so I have everything hooked up, and I have spent 3 days trying to get it to work. And this morning, guess what? It works. All right, I'll explain some of the trials and tribulations here in a second. But if I look at the bench, and while it looks like it's a mess, and it kind of is, it's plugged in. You can see power see the red light right there, and the things to hook up. This line right here, there we go. From here, it's connected over here to the servo board. Over here to the soundboard, and over here to the light board for the flashing lights. The servos, which are buried on all this wire, are hooked up here. Now my issues were with how these dip switches should be aligned and how these jumpers should be aligned. And I couldn't get it to work, couldn't get it to work, couldn't get it to work. And I had my infrared sensors, which is all these wires, hooked up here and here. And when that was the case, it was on all the time and I couldn't get it to work. Well, and I finally did go back and study this diagram real carefully. And I know you can't read it, but if you buy one of these, you'll get the picture included in the listing. Take a good look at it. Bring it up as a sole picture, not as part of a video like this. And read, especially right here. This set of plug-ins for the IR sensor, which is right here, is only to be used when the jumper here is set to MB. Okay. So I unplug that, have the jumper where it is set to MS, all right, for station mode. And lo and behold, after you power it on, the whole system will come up and it'll start dinging and flashing and doing all that kind of stuff. And you think it's not working right because the IR sensors aren't working. I think it just needs to go through a setup process every time it powers up. All right. And eventually it will shut off. And once it does, then the IR sensors will work. All right. And if I just simply do this, all right, you can see the flashers flashing. You can't see the servos moving, but they do move. All right, so it worked. And I have multiple IR sensors, and I have more splitters and sensors on order. And I've already added on a splitter with 2 more sensors, just to make sure that it's going to work properly, and it does. All right. So the next situation is how long, once it's triggered, all right, and untriggered, how long do you want it to continue to work, to flash, and have the gate down? Well, if we go back to this again, and this section on the lower part where it says TR, TY1, TY2, and TS. That is the positioning of these dip switches. Now, the only one we're really concerned about is the TS. All right, and you have the option of 3 seconds, 7 second, 12 second, and 18 second. All right, I have it where number 1 is off and number 2 is on. So that gives 7 seconds. So from the time I trigger, now it'll keep going as long as I have it triggered. And my finger's in front of that sensor. Now it should go for approximately 7 seconds longer. All right, or immediately after it's already gone for 7 seconds, apparently. All right. So that is proof of concept on the board itself. Now, on the servo board here, in the upper part, you might be able to see a little bit. I'll bring it down a little bit. On this servo board right here, there's a couple adjustments you can make, all right, for how slow or how fast you want these gate arms to go. Now, I don't have the levers, which are here. I don't have the levers on it yet, so that still has to be assembled. All right, and it came with some fine wire that is used to connect the gate arms down to the lever on the servo. All of that will be done as part of installation. All I wanted to do here is make sure I had everything wired and working properly and adjusted as close as possible to what I think I want on the layout, because it could be problematic on my installation to come back later and do it. All right. About noonish, I guess it was, yesterday, after we had it all working, you already saw the video on that. I was sitting in the house, and of course my workbench here and the layout's out in the garage. And we're in Oklahoma in July, so it's hot. Anyway, sometime around noonish or whatever, I was in the house, and all of a sudden I thought I heard bells ringing. And lo and behold, I came out, and these signals were going for no reason. I had left them plugged in. Everything was working. You saw the video. And the frustrations came back. You know, I mentioned that I went through some trials and tribulations trying to get it work, and that all of a sudden the next morning everything was working fine and hunky-dory, and that was great. But when I was working on it originally, it was in the afternoon, and I couldn't get the IR sensors to work right. I'd plug in the system, and everything would come on, including the bells and, you know, dinging and lights, which they weren't supposed to do until something passed over the IR sensor, right? Okay. So, you know, just to review again, here we are, and I've got an IR sensor plugged in right there. Everything's fine. You know, a train passes over the IR sensor. All right. And it rings for a given amount of time, and that's controllable by these dip switches here. Anywhere from 3 to 18 seconds. So, and everything's working. So why did it all come on yesterday in the afternoon for no apparent reason? Well, you know, I frustrated over that all afternoon yesterday. Went back through and tried to, you know, fault tree analysis everything, and it suddenly dawned on me last night that perhaps the temperature here in the garage was affecting the operation. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll wait until the morning and come out and try it when it's cooler out here. Well, it's 4:14 in the morning, plugged it in, and it was fine. And as soon as I passed my hand or an object in front of the IR sensor, all right, like this, everything works fine. So the only conclusion I can draw is this system is temperature sensitive. The IR sensors will not work properly in a high temperature environment, such as a garage in the afternoon in July in Oklahoma. So, but everything is working, and I will just have to set it up in a manner that will provide either adequate ventilation or only use the system when and only plug it in the mornings, as an example. The other thing I wanted to test was manual button control. Now on the main board, and if I come bring this main board up, it has a button. Well, no, it's not. This main board doesn't even show it. So I've got an upgrade, apparently an upgraded board. And I'm going to zoom this in a little bit. Right here. And as we look, this is a manual control button. And the IR sensor, I got in front of the IR sensor, so. Okay. So this is a manual control button, right here. All right, if I push it, see, it comes on for the given amount of preset time. Well, they supplied Wehonest supplied another jumper, all right, cable here. Okay, that can plug into a remote port there. So you can put a manual control button like on the fascia. And I'm just going to do this to see if it works. And this one does not. Not the way I thought it was going to anyway. Okay. I was hoping, and we can try it this way. I'm wondering if you have to change the dip switches for it, which may have to be done. But anyway, we'll have to play with that a little bit more. So, but again, temperature sensitive. All right. But it does work. As I figured it out. Hopefully these little tidbits will help others in an installation of these gates. So, again, the next part is to be mounting the crossing gates. And I know Mr. Dwight Curley is interested in that process. Getting the servos arms mounted and on their brackets, and getting all this up onto the layout. So hang tight. So with that, we're gonna conclude part 1 of the Wehonest automated crossing gate, animated crossing gate, animated and sound crossing gate signals. All right. Part 2 will focus in on actually installing this onto the layout. So with that, I want to thank you for joining me here at the Retirement Railroad Workbench, Retirement Railroad 2.0 Workbench Wednesday, and I believe it's episode 41 or probably 41. We'll see. And remember, y'all have a great day. Bye now.